Happy New Year to all of you. Seems like a month ago. It's just a couple weeks. This is awkwardly set up. The intent is to have people up in the front, but that camera is sitting right there, so I can't even wander around. I have to basically stay right here. So bear with me. If we are video conferencing this, and so if you have a question, wait till we get a mic to you so that the people on the other end can hear the question. Otherwise, I will be trying to repeat that, and I will do a bad job of it. So we want to go through current status of all the elements of Cornerstone, as well as address questions that you might have, and have a number of folks in the room who can help with more details should we need them, or if not, we'll take questions and get them back and get them answered. So I'm going to try to address any of your questions that you might have today. So we'll go through the four major elements: RU Marketplace and procurement, financial management functions, including grants, expense management, HR, payroll, and then some other things at the end. The slides are going to be posted tomorrow, this afternoon, at both the Cornerstone website, cornerstone.rutgers.edu, and my website, finance.rutgers.edu. So you'll be able to find them there pretty quickly. Okay. So let's get into procurement. This is probably the biggest pain point. Well, it is the biggest pain point. I would say categorically the biggest pain point that we have had heretofore. So here's where we are. So the good news is that as of today, as of actually for the last couple of weeks, putting in purchase orders, over 98% of them are processed appropriately, processed through. If you're putting in a new requisition, and the 1.7% that don't for a good reason, and they're for reasons that have to go back to unit about or something. So the system is running requisitions to invoices appropriately now. And so the orders are working well. What got bollocksed up was that over the course of the first couple of months, there was a cascading of different issues that resulted in just simply a backlog of invoices that couldn't get processed. So the first was the conversion of purchase orders. If you've been to any of these before, you know we converted 42,000 purchase orders from the other two systems, and that it took, despite the testing of all those, it still took longer by several weeks than we anticipated. In addition to that, there was some glitches in how does the front end of RU Marketplace, which is the SyQuest system that those of you who are at UMD&J before and RBHS using Banner you are familiar with, and it with the Oracle backend. So you order in SyQuest, it gets invoiced in SyQuest, it gets paid out of Oracle, it gets recorded out of Oracle. So those conversations between those two are essential, and through various reasons and multiple reasons, those things got backed up. It doesn't take long to back up. We get somewhere in the neighborhood of 3,500 to 5,000 invoices a week. So we ended up with both a significant backlog of invoices that were in process already, and ones that just had to get into the system, flat out. So we have made really good progress in getting all the purchase orders loaded in. Over 95% of all the purchase orders that were converted or put in are in the system. And we're actually up to 60% of all the invoices being paid, and it's probably north of that after the weekend. We have had a team working on this since before, well, pretty much all the month of December, including over the holidays. We had a team in during the holidays that was working on getting invoices pushed through. And right now, we're pushing through at a very high rate, but it still requires, we're getting somewhere between 1,500 and 2,000 invoices a day fully processed out. So the backlog is coming down, and it's coming down pretty quickly. It won't be too long before we get current. You know, we get within the range of what our normal payment terms would be. And this is also taking into account that we've issued quite a number of emergency payments through that process. But in addition to that, by virtue of issuing those, we have a lot of invoices there. I think we're up to 5,000 now that were canceled because they're duplicates. So, you know, a lot of what's in the backlog has been taken care of, and so will fall out automatically. So we are expecting that by January 26th, that we will be caught up. We're actually going to be caught up substantially before that, but that's when we're really drawing the line and saying, okay, now we're caught up. That doesn't mean there aren't going to still be invoices that need to be researched or invoices that have issues or so on like that, but they'll be in the normal process, something that would normally happen, not because it got backed up in the hang-up of the various glitches. So we're really kudos to procurement AP because these folks have taken tremendous efforts and spent a lot of time working this issue. You know, we're going to have to give them their holidays back at some point. And we're also at a point where the efforts are required are not something you can just throw people at. They're people now, they have to know what they're doing, know how to handle something. So we have 20 very dedicated people working on this issue, a lot of great management work by Dave Finkel over here to really push this through. And I'm very proud of that group, but we need to get caught up so we can give them a little bit of a pressure relief. But it's a great effort on their part. They're working well above industry standards for processing invoices, which is what we need to do to catch up. This is not a tolerable situation, not something that we could just say, oh, well, you know. It's something that had to have these kinds of efforts to get it through. We continue to look at the whole process, make sure that we can't improve it. We're going to leave this extra infrastructure in place after we're caught up so that we make sure we don't get backed up again, at least till we're confident about all the processes through. So that's a big thing. So as of January 13th, the majority of invoices have been paid. So as I said, it's actually above 60% now. And then I just still reference you to the emergency payment process if there is something that is emergent, something that you immediately need to do. Now, Dave tells me that we're at a point now that if you have an emergency payment, we may be able to go find that invoice and get it paid the normal way, as opposed to going through the emergency process, going through the extra bank steps. So that's a good thing. And we're doing our best to have those prioritized through. But there's still a lot to do, and we just have to keep the noses down and get it through. I want to stop there. There are questions about this. This is the biggest deal we have, although we have a couple of big deals. And thank you.
So I just want to clarify, when you say caught up, does that mean invoices that aren't currently reflected in the system? So for example, Friday we had to resubmit about 54 that weren't showing up either in Oracle or in SideQuest. So I don't know if there's some kind of an issue with, you know, when we submit the invoices via email from that scanning software that goes right into SideQuest, and if there's some that are getting missed in that area as well.
So the answer is that caught up includes that. But it still means that everybody who's expecting to see something, you know, keep your eyes out for it. Make sure that that it didn't get lost somewhere on the way. I don't expect that to be the case anymore. I think we have accounted for all that, but there's still a lot of it to go. Okay.
Can you just clarify, because again, I put in close to 50 invoices, and I think 2 of them reflect in the system. Should I be resubmitting them?
No. No. And which system are you looking into?
SideQuest.
SideQuest. Okay. So what I'm going to refer you to, where is that in here? Stephanie, where is the thing about the lookup? Slide 5. Okay. So, as an interim basis, this is not what you would normally do, but this is what you can do. If an invoice has gotten into Oracle but hasn't signaled back to SideQuest, that's possible still. So these reports allow you to look into Oracle and see if the invoice has gone through that way, and perhaps not messaged back to SideQuest yet. That's one of the issues in terms of the integration that we're keeping an eye on, and in fact we have a team in this week from SideQuest to help with that and other issues. But this is a way you can really check, because that's where it's get paid.
If it's not in Oracle, should it be resubmitted?
No, if it's not in Oracle, then you should contact procurement.
Okay.
All right? You should contact procurement before you resubmit it. The reason why is we have lots of duplicate entries now from submitting and resubmitting, and I understand that. You know, it's a perfectly normal thing. Let's not compound it. Call first and say, okay, can you identify this? Is this in the process? And if it is, then fine. If it's not, then they'll instruct you to do. Is that fair? Yes, sir. And then we'll come over.
Hi, I have a less operational and more basic question, which is that I commend your team that they worked over the holidays, but the issue that I see is why was this system not functional before it was released to the university? In particular, what I'm wondering is the UX, the user experience, who provided input for that? Because from my own personal experience, it is one of the least user-friendly systems that I have used.
Which piece?
The pieces that I have interacted with in terms of the expense reimbursement, the marketplace usage as far as the faculty goes. And then I don't know if we are right now going beyond the discussion of those pieces or also the expense charging and all those things.
Expense reimbursement.
Well, expense reimbursement and also beyond, like charge account, grant accounting and student accounting and all that. And I'm just curious why or who, because I talked to a few people, they said their input was never taken as far as the user experience goes. I'm just wondering, like, because I find it hard, I don't know if other people find it really easy to use. And then the thing is, as I said, I commend your team for working very hard over the holidays, but why was the system even put into place before it was fully tested?
It was fully tested. You can test fully and still have issues. This is my 4th ERP system. This is not unusual. You can test it as much as you'd like to. We tested it all the way through, all these things. What we didn't do was do the full conversion, because you can't do that until you do it. But we did full testing of each stage of the process, and it for the most part, well, it for all part worked. When it's pressure tested with 42,000 conversions that had issues, even though they were tested in a smaller number than that, it was still significant. That was could not be anticipated, along with some of the other glitches that when this thing went to full production didn't work the way you expected it. That's not unusual. That's perfectly normal, this kind of system. And unless you just take all the time in the world and you run parallel, which we could not afford to do. Remember, if we'd been going from one system to one system, it'd be a different thing. We were going from 2 systems to 1 system. So we had to make a break because we could not sustain the old systems and run that. So there had to be a judgment that said, okay, the testing's worked through, we worked it out with users from the field, and we're going to go forward, and then we still run into problems. That's not unusual. You may not like that answer. I have experience of 4 ERP systems at 4 different universities. It's unfortunately normal. Now, a cascading of issues, some of them were software and other types of issues that you couldn't test for. They were not test things. They were things that happened, a data center issue. Not our data center, the data center where the system's hosted, for instance, that held us up. Those things you can't test for, but they still cause you to back up here. As far as the user experience is concerned, I'm a user of it myself. Nobody likes change. Nobody likes a different view of something. We are looking for ways to improve it along the way. Happy to find ways to improve it. One of the choices, though, when you go with a cloud-based system, which was a strategic change, was that you sometimes have to accept what they give you, but that doesn't mean you can't influence changes in it. So we'd happy to discuss, happy to put in suggestions for changes in the user interface.
So,
We need it. Wait, please. So that the people in the web can hear.
No problem. So I have been contacting a lot of people, including DGCA. I spoke to Angelo also. I said, you rolled up the system. We understand it's a cloud-based system. It's very hard for you to make any changes because it changes everything else. And it's a banking software. To implement that into university, it will take some time to talk to Oracle for the project especially. And we have a lot of grants which are ending. There are a lot of grants which are like yearly based. We have to report them. So we are keeping our shadow system right now. We are working manually to put the commitments. But when we were able to see the system, we used to go in overdraft. Now we are not able to see anything, and we are still keeping track of everything. There is no guarantee that we will not go in overdraft. That's one. Second thing, he mentioned about the user group. So are you forming a user group now? You did not form the user group before. Are you taking input from any user group now? Can some of us be in the part of that user group?
Yeah, we did have user groups set up all throughout the project. They were coming from all 4 different chancellor units. They were focused on each different area. So, but clearly, you can't have you can only have so many that's involved in that.
But those user groups are not the hands-on user group. Those
Well,
are
yes,
the
in fact-
assistant dean.
No, in fact, they were hands-on user groups.
Okay.
Yeah, they were. Now, as far as your question about being able to see into projects, once we get caught up with the charges there, you should be able to see all the transactions that are coming against your system. And if there's a reporting issue, then we can discuss what that is. But your vision into it should be pretty clear.
So we have,
and then it also has some things built into it to, warn you against overdrafting as well. That's another element in the system configuration.
But right now, there's no way we can see whether we are going in the overdraft or what is the budget and what are the expenses, because some of the expenses are not even hitting the account yet.
Well, that comes back to this.
Okay.
Unfortunately, we know that all those expenses are in that backlog. That's why we're pushing so hard to get them through, so that they can be caught up for you. That is a real issue. I understand that. We can't look into that until we punch those through. So other than what has gotten set up as an encumbrance, we've got to go through this process in order to get you caught up.
Okay.
And
Thank you.
that I'm sorry to say that's what it's going to take, but that's why it is so important that we have these people, you know, noses down working on this pretty much every day of the week. Yes,
Hey,
ma'am.
We've noticed that the shipping charges that are not listed on a purchase order, that come in later, that hit the invoice but it didn't reflect on the purchase order, are not showing up, they're not being converted into the Oracle system. So the invoice is hitting. Right, but it's one of those crossover issues, so we believe, I mean, I'm not sure if they're being paid, but if they are being paid, it's just not, it's not going into the financial system so that we can view it. So the question is, when are we, like, where are the charges currently going, and when is that expected to be fixed?
Are you saying that we're paying them, but they're not showing up?
I'm saying I'm expecting that they're being paid, but I'm saying, so the invoice comes in, it doesn't match.
Right. A lot of times what happens, just so everybody's aware of the problem, we'll get quoted on goods, $100, and they won't quote shipping, and that's a problem. We need to know shipping up front whenever possible, and generally we try not to pay shipping in those instances because they quoted us $100, we're not going to pay $105. So we try not to take that off when the invoice does come in. So if we pay $105, though, it should show up in the, it should be reflected in the GL. But that might mean that we're not paying it then. I mean, that may, right, so I mean, that's really what it comes down to. You'd have to look at the invoice detail in SciQuest to see whether or not AP just deducted that from the invoice or refused to pay
Can you
that.
give us a specific
Yeah, I mean,
example? Because we'd love to research that and then post the issue,
Yeah,
post the answer to that, because, you know, if this is something that we're not seeing, then we need to see it. If it's something we're not paying,
I've
then we need to
sent in-
tell you we're not paying it.
I've sent in 2 specific examples, and when I drilled down, I could see where the shipping was being charged to another account, like not my project. So I assume there's some
Okay.
account
So-
out in the university where they're collecting.
Right, so, exactly, is it being paid, and then where it's being paid, and like, is the university gonna underwrite it as a grant, or is it gonna be fixed, and is there an estimated time of when it would be fixed?
if you want to send me the details on it.
Would both of you send those examples to David? And then, because we'd both like to research it and then post the answer of what we find.
Even that is happening with the travel advances. We don't see where they are. Travel advance is not posted anywhere, and you don't even ask for an account number for that. So we just do the, yes, it's not
Yeah.
in the system.
And
The reason you don't see the account numbers because the travel advance is an in and an out. It's actually posted when the expense report is submitted, and then it's broken out whether it's air, hotel, et cetera. So that's where it is. Otherwise, it's just a clearing number.
But that person who is getting the advance has multiple reimbursements. So when that happens, the advance gets applied to the first table which we do, our first 2-3 tables which we process. So that is not correct. We'll have to do the journal entries. So we had to pull back all those tables and then wait for the table which was actually asked for, the advance was asked for, so that it get applied to the right account. So that is not working
well, the
for
expense
us.
is still the expense, though. I mean, an advance is simply another method of payment that is put up in advance. I mean, when you,
But it has to
when
be
you-
applied to the correct project.
well, the expense is still the
Yes.
full expense, though.
Yeah.
I don't,
I think I understand what she's saying. I think what we need to do is get some more education on the best way to handle cash advances. So let's work on something there, okay?
the best way is for me to get the P cards in place, travel cards. Yes, of course. Oh, well, he was before.
To go back to advances,
Yeah.
we processed an advance for somebody and they came back and the advance was more than what they spent. So they wrote a check and we sent it in, and then the tabor in the system, it was kicked back to us, and we were told that we had to add an expense line item to clear it out to zero, because in the system it was showing as a negative. And to me, that's correct. If I have to add in an expense to clear it out, I don't want to add an expense on my account because
No.
it's not a valid expense.
Where'd you get that information from?
That came from Lisa Robinson.
Okay.
And then I tried to call somebody, a manager, and their cell phone.
the manager right there.
And her voicemail said that she wasn't listening to messages, and which I think is ridiculous personally, that I can't leave a message for a manager when I have an issue. And then I sent you an email a month ago, and I'm still waiting for a response. Stephen Levinson. Okay?
Lisa Robinson gave you misinformation. I will talk to her about that. I haven't heard.
So that she-
All right, I'm not sure why Lisa Robinson gave you that information. I have a meeting with her tomorrow. We'll follow up on that. As for voicemail, I'm trying to do everything by email, but I have over 1,100 unread because I'm one person doing it all. So I will get to you. I apologize if I wasn't quick enough, but I will do my best to get back to you. I'll look at yours tonight when I'm home again.
So, but what are we supposed to do in that case? Leave it as a negative amount and submit it?
Yes, that's the way it's supposed to be. And then when the check is sent to Lisa Robinson with a copy of the expense report that shows the amount that's owed, she is supposed to do something on the back end, accounting is. How long ago was this? Do you remember?
Over a month ago.
Oh, okay, so over a month ago, so maybe she didn't clear that with accounting at that point. But that is,
We have two of them that are now sitting there
Mhm.
that haven't been processed. The employees are not screaming because they already got the money. They have
Right.
to get money back. But I have two that I refuse to approve.
all right, let me
because
talk,
they
I'm
have
going
the added line item, which to me, I don't want.
that doesn't make any
No,
sense.
it doesn't.
I will talk to Lisa tomorrow. We already have a meeting set up, and I'll make sure that I bring that up, and I will get back to you tomorrow afternoon.
Okay, thank you.
Then we want to make sure we get your other two.
So I want to go back to a couple of comments that were made earlier. One is about the expense reimbursement. I can assure you I'm not one who doesn't like something just because it has been changed. In my view, it is extremely user unfriendly. I don't know who was part of the user group, but it's extremely user unfriendly. It takes a lot of time, and I have used it at other universities, similar systems. They are much better, and I would rather go back to the paper format than spend my time playing with that system unless it can be made user friendly. That's my one comment.
Let me drill into that, because I use it. What do you not like about it?
What do I not like about it?
Yeah,
For
give-
example, I have to every time go and change in the information because I am a state employee. If I want to use it for a grant, it plugs in the state number directly because I come under the state thing. If I have to use it a grant, I have to change it. If I forget, it wouldn't flag it. It goes down, it waits all the way, and then it gets rejected and it tells me, oh, you didn't, for that one single thing, you didn't change it. This whole system of like where I have to find 10 change numbers 10 different places to make sure, and if it doesn't, I don't remember to change it, it automatically uses the 100, 1,000, whatever that number is for the state account, and then it gets rejected, and no flags. It takes 5 days, comes back. I have to upload, there is a receipt uploading thing. I can't like do bulk with different people have different expectations. You have to submit it on each item separately. I have to click each item separately. I mean, where I used to do before, I used a similar system at Duke where it was all, you plug in all the receipts, you throw it in all at once, and it was all good to go. You just plug in. I have to input so many numbers. I did one account reimbursement. It took me literally, because of the number of receipts, it took me literally 45 minutes to do that. Now that's the least effective use of my time, in my opinion. Sir, you may disagree with me. I am amazed you do it yourself instead of your secretary doing it, because my chair didn't know, because my chair was using, his secretary was using it. But I don't have a secretary who uses that. I have to do it myself.
Well, I do it myself.
Again, I don't know who was part of your user group. Other people can comment
So,
here how they feel about
I am
it.
happy, so these are good comments, because they're things that we can put into the enhancement queue. And I'd be happy for us, well, we're taking it down. We're taking information down in terms of what goes into that queue. So these are good comments for that. That's why I'm probing, so that we can get specifics that we can ask about. Because we can have influence with Oracle in terms of what enhancements can come through.
I mean, the whole idea that I have to, for every single item, there should be, for one receipt, it should be just one thing. For every single item, I have to change these numbers, even if it's part of one receipt. I worked in software for 3-4 years, and I would call it extremely poor user-friendly system. So
We'll follow up on that.
The second comment or query rather is, it appeared to me from what you were saying is that the only issue is in invoices backlog. From my personal experience, what it seems to be is that there are some still data conversion issues that are causing, for example, at least my grants office in the School of Engineering cannot change people's students' charging instructions. It's not happening well, they tell me. Every time I go, they say that the system is not properly working. And DGCA, I guess Dr. Kinsey sitting here, she can comment on that further. But I've been told that they have had some issues because of that. 2 of my grants were really in jeopardy because of the system's inability to basically switch different accounting. Now, I'm not in accounting. If you ask me what exactly numbers did you press or whatever, that I cannot tell you. But I talked to SOE people, School of Engineering, and I said, was your input not taken or when it would be fixed? They say they have no clue when the data conversion will be due. They use the term something called SWJR or something. I have no idea what that means, right? Okay, salary allocation. So I have people here are more experienced than I am. And so it doesn't seem to me that's just an invoice backlog issue. And it is really hurting our grants. I don't know what comment you have about that. And
Yeah,
Dr.
I'll
Kinsey
get to
can
the
speak more
salary
to that.
redistribution because that's now, we're now up and running with that. Here, let me, excuse me. Since Terry is here.
I'm here. No, we did not. But I will say that the salary form, you'll get to it. The most important thing is we are working with sponsors when there's problems. And depending on the nature of the problem and the jeopardy is, we have letters that we send to them explaining the process. We ask everybody if they're getting to the end of the grant and they're concerned to ask for a no-cost extension. If it's a second no-cost extension or they're concerned, we go to the agency. We have specific letters we've written. Sometimes they come from Angelo. Occasionally they've been phone calls or emails from me. If we have to, we'll get them from Chris Malloy. Some sponsors are more difficult. I will acknowledge that anything that is Defense Department, Homeland Security, however, even with them when we had a recent issue, when we reached out from our office, explained to them, told them what we were doing and updated them, they were very reasonable about it. So my one recommendation is when you get to that place is reach out to us, especially for these letters that explain what's going on. And we are telling people to get a no-cost extension, and if they're having an issue to come to us, because people are very understanding of giving us the extra time to clean up what we need to clean up. So if you do feel that that's the concern, that is our recommendation right now.
And the salary redistribution is up and running and we'll be starting to post those changes.
For the expense reports, I would like to add, earlier I was able to, as an approver, I was able to make small changes. And now I have to request for more information. So the user, they don't know much about the system yet. So they come back to us, we have to tell them to log in into their account, and then we make the change and they submit in front of us. So is there a way, if you are talking about enhancements, can you add something that approver can make some small changes, like changing the string, changing a small account number typos and stuff like that?
Do you have any comment? That's certainly something we can ask.
Yeah, it's something we can ask for. I think in previous town halls, though, we talked about security issues, but right now it's not in Oracle's headline, so we can definitely look into it.
We can definitely look into making limited changes. Some of them are the responsibility of the person who puts it in and testing to it. So, but things like codes, yeah, that's probably something we can. Yeah.
One thing I found with the expense report, you know, we've been rolling it out to our departments, so the people who incur the expense, you know, do everything. And with grants, when they've been putting in the project number, up at the top, there's like a string of numbers that says account, and within that is the business line. The business line is not matching the mapping of the project number, and most of our PIs, you know, they don't know this, you know, even though we told them what the whole mapping string is. So when they've been sending us expense reports for approval, we have to send it back to them because the mapping is not correct, and I just don't understand that.
The mapping that you actually see there is tied to the employee themselves. It is not the project. The project string would go in where it says expenditure org. That's what the project mapping is.
Right, but just to pony on that, the issue is that because it's mapping to the employee, the users in the past have only had to put in the project number. Now, all of that other UDO, business line, everything, in my opinion, once it should be like SideQuest, where if they put in the project number, it should automatically pull that. So you shouldn't have to make changes unless it's a GL string and you need to make a specific change. But if they put in a project number, all of that, it would make it a
should
lot
inherit
easier.
what's with the project, yes.
It would make it so much easier for the
Okay.
traveler.
Yeah, that's something,
Yeah, I
because,
definitely think that's a potential enhancement, or one we at least want to request, because I agree
Yeah.
with you.
it should inherit whatever the project
Mm-hmm.
set up as. Yeah, absolutely agree with that. Back there, or,
We needed to reimburse students via expense reports that came on payroll after the conversion, and we were told there was no projected date of having them added to the expense report system. Do we know when that population's going to be added?
are these student employees or non-employees?
Student employees that have to be reimbursed.
Okay, they
via an
should be
expense
up and
report.
running. They should be running now, or available now.
They've been
Yeah.
added in the last
Yeah.
few weeks?
We do have some access issues that they're trying to figure out. I don't know if you can say that.
They have some access issues.
Yeah, there's been some access issues. Do you know when the last time they tried to get in was? I'd ask that you try again. They're still trying to work through the access issues. Has something to do with the way they're designated in HR that we're trying to work through. Thank you.
So if you would try that and let us know, let Ann know, so that we can, please use the mic.
sorry.
Please use the mic.
We had a student with the same issue. She was paid on payroll and couldn't enter her information. And I don't remember who we contacted, but they sent us an access form in the very next day. Like,
did that work?
yes.
Okay.
So if you could get the access form,
Yeah,
if they
but,
can't.
but try it, and then let us know how that went. Because again, they should be updating.
Hi, Mike. I think you said the salary reallocations are going to be posting soon.
Yes.
Is the form, the SWRJ form, going to be available for any reallocations prior to go live? Because it's not up on the website yet.
Being finalized, I'm told. So, timetable about, it's being tested right now for final. It's being tested.
And we're developing a better portal so we can track the submissions.
And we're developing a better portal so we can track the submissions. See? Question was about journal.
What about the journal entries? You may get more technical than I can answer at some point.
I was asking, is it safe for the journal entries? Is it getting tested? Do you have a template or where we are with the journal entries?
I don't have an answer on that one off the top of my head. Looking for Tom, but I don't have an answer off the top of my head, so we'll have to get back.
Journal entries related to just general journal entries? Or, right, but related to non-payroll expense?
Transfer, basically.
Yeah, okay. Okay. We'll get an answer. What? I don't know.
Okay, when the new system went live, we were told that we could go back
there we
and
are.
do, sorry, me again.
A voice.
Yes, we were told that we could go back and do charging instructions to move salary prior to 10/8. So we did that. And then we were told recently that those did not go through. Payroll told us that they were holding it.
They were
and-
holding until all the mappings were corrected. Because, so think about, some of them may be a result because mappings did not land right.
Right.
Okay? And if we correct the mapping, that automatically corrects those. So you would be double correcting it. That's why they're being held.
Right.
Until the mapping corrections are in, and then it's matched up against that.
Right, but then there was also confusion of whether we had to use the old account numbers or the new project account. So basically, that goes back to the salary reallocation for the new system. Do you still expect that to continue? Or for payroll to do the mapping changes for what happened, let's go back to 9/1 through 10/8, or should we do them via salary reallocation in the new portal?
Okay, I need help on that one. Okay, what I think is that I think the mapping needs to come first, because that should correct a lot of the things people wanted to change. But then there are some normal changes, like, it's getting mapped correctly, but that's not the grant you wanted it charged to, back to 9/1, so you need to move it somewhere else. But we need to do that as a second stage, after we get all the mapping changes back in. Okay. Going from go live forward, you'd use the normal salary change form.
So how far back can we use the new system to post the entries? How far back can we go?
You can go back to October 8.
But that is with the new system now, currently. But once the mapping is done, how far can we go back to clean up the accounts?
Well, yeah, I mean, we will still have to do cleanups on certain grants going back, and whether it be because of labor certification or just other cleanups. We're going to be getting instructions out on that once we have all the mappings changed, fixed and up to date.
So now that you are enhancing the system, I'm sure you bought this new ERP system to have a better usage and the reporting. So are these salary reallocations are going to be directly linked to our ESERT system? Because ESERT, we have to go back and make the changes. So if we are doing a salary reallocation, can it be fed to the ESERT system directly?
That's the effort certification? Yeah. You want to take that one? So just one thing to remember, we're still using the old payroll system. Okay. Now we updated it for the chart strings, and we brought on all the RBHS employees. It's the same system, though.
So the technical issues on eCert are that we're going from a new system, and we're also moving all of the legacy UMD and J faculty and staff in RBHS to the eCert system. We're also at least 4 versions behind on eCert. So while we're doing all of this, we're upgrading the system. That's not at the top of our list right now because we aren't going to be doing that right now. We have Huron in working on that. So the instructions will come out from that as we're doing it right now for part of the implementation. So that is more than a month down the road. Right now, the GCA team are focused on the process and on the salary justifications, and Nizam is on point for that, so everything we do is consistent. But that process will come out as part of the new eCert rollout. It's not going to be that different. It's literally, if you're legacy Rutgers, it's just an upgrade of the system that's long overdue. It's on the RBHS side that'll be a major change.
One last thing about it. I'm sorry. So while you are making these changes and while you have this backlog, is it possible that you can uncheck the end date on the project account so that we don't clog you again with the IPAS forms and other things. So if you check off the end date, they will be a lot easier for us to do the transfers and do the salary allocation at the later date after the 90 days or after 30 days. The expenses can still go on this, and we can clean up once we see everything correctly booked. Is it a consideration?
Yeah, that is a risk.
That's a risk. I mean, right now what we've done is that the system didn't allow us to do the post 90-day change. We're changing all the end dates and we're adding in the 90 days and then we're noting them within the system. I would rather go back and control the changes than leave everything open because of the risk. That's a major risk. It's easy for us to go in, and what we'll do with our sponsors is justify things over 90 days because of the implementation, but we still have to maintain controls. But we are fixing every end date. We have a team that's been working on that. That's almost
number
done.
one.
So, okay.
Good transition to that.
Actually, the other question following from that, can we get extension on the 90 days to do charge instruction instead of doing salary reallocation? Right now, because of the new system, we can only go back 90 days, but we've been waiting. That we have stuff from summer that we have to fix. But the charge instruction won't allow us. We have to do salary allocation. Is there any way? This is really not grant. We have federal grant that we manage within subs. We're hoping that we'll get an extension, not when we do charge instruction. Right now, you can only go back if you have grants or federal grants, or our grants is like a USDA grant. You can only go back 90 days. But since the charge instruction is not working, we've been waiting for a while. Instead of doing charge instruction, can we get some kind of, through the system, an extension? Because if it's not grant, we can go back 2 years. The system does allow us, but when it's a grant, we can only go back 90 days to fix the charge instruction. But just because of the circumstances, can we get some kind of, I'm more concerned about actually not the grant. We have like a 2/6 accounts that we manage within subs that's considered a grant that's not going through the grant office.
I can relay.
We still need to maintain our internal controls on anything that's a grant or that's a subaward that's off of a grant. So we have 90 days, and we can have exceptions to that to put away a blanket that anybody can continue to spend because we have these issues is inconsistent with the controls that we really need right now. That would raise a very big flag for an audit versus we can justify these over 90 days changes, but to just make everything. Retroactive. Right, well, that's if it's before the actual system changeover. I don't think the instructions have gone out for changes for prior to, they've not gone out yet.
No,
so that's not even starting yet.
For the same reason I mentioned
Yeah.
before, is that the mapping fixes will fix a lot of the things people want to move, and then they should be done after those are up to date.
Next month, my 90 days is up. So if I want to go back to 10/1 or 10/8, come February, the system won't let you.
We'll go through a normal process for approving things past 90 days.
Do we count with salary allocation like?
Right.
Yes, we will. We know that.
Yes.
It's our responsibility to maintain that control so that we
But-
don't have an audit issue in our A133 audit.
Okay, did we have an audit issue when payroll went live the first time? Because when payroll first rolled out PeopleSoft, we were able to go back more than 90 days. It has the field for the extra 90-day justification in PeopleSoft, and we were just adding it in there. And then they changed it later on. Was there an audit issue that took that ability away from us? Or was just somebody wanting more to take it away, or for some reason?
I don't
Maybe I'm
think
not
we have
explaining.
anybody here who has that experience.
When PeopleSoft went live on grants,
Well, that's not really relevant here.
it wasn't that long ago. Because when PeopleSoft went live on a grant, you were able to go back more than 90 days. You just had to put in the extra field that's in the system. It's on the bottom. Why is this more than 90 days? And then there was management changes in grant accounting, and they took it away.
It probably was an audit issue then.
Well, I don't remember if there was. I'm asking if there was. Is that why it was
Well,
taken
I mean,
away?
I've been here 3 years, that was 2 years before that. So I don't think there's anyone here who was there. So we can research it, I can get you an answer.
I mean-
It's just we don't have the people in the room who know that.
But I guess my question is, if you do open it up more than 90 days, what are you afraid of? Are you afraid that people are going to go and not put in the correct information they need for the justification? Or, you know, if you train the people properly and then...
We can't assure that we can go out and train people properly. We are prepared for the fact that we're going to get a very large number of these documents, and we are going to process them because we've worked with internal audit, we've worked with our leadership in GCA, we've considered what's best practices, and we want something that is the most compliant, even if it's more work for us. If we get to that point and it's an issue, but for right now to sort of just blanket do that, I don't think is actually going to move us any faster forward than where we are right now. We're certainly not ready to do something like that. If we get to the point we look at it and it's a problem, I'll reassess it, but for right now, every indication we have is that that is not the most, we're being very, you know, we'll have to be very liberal about the 90-day rule because of all of the things that have happened with this system, and we're confident that we'll be able to justify that, but it still requires that we maintain controls on how we did it. Because there are people that would want to make changes, but I want to get back to Mike because I think he's got more slides here.
There was one more question somewhere there. Yeah. And then,
Hi. This is about expenditure moves. We're using that costing module. Somebody was talking about project-to-project JEs. We can't do those now. So I'm using the costing module to do expenditure moves. It's working fairly well, except that you have to do one expense at a time, and that could be breaking up a PO into 5 or 6 expenses. It takes a lot of time, and sometimes when you get through all of them, and my manager has to approve all of them, they all say that they're gone through and they're approved, and I get the notice that they're approved, and then 3 or 4 of them are still sitting there saying they're waiting for approval, and I have gotten no answers on that. I've asked about
okay,
3 times.
I think we have an answer. Just take it over to Seppi.
Hi, I'll caveat, I'm not an expert in this area, but I do know a little bit about it. So the role you're referring to is the project cost adjuster role, which is to move expenditures between a project and a general ledger. And then to project. Okay, so that's the project adjuster role. You should have access to that. So that was part of the initial rollout. So help me understand, what was the question? Was it just the functionality?
Yeah, some of the expenses move and it seems to be no problem. And
Correct.
some of them say they have moved and say it's been approved and it's not approved, but they're still sitting there saying they're waiting for approval.
So can we get get your specifics on that? On the no. I mean, just send them to us because well, I want to research this so we can respond.
So from project to project, it does go through a finance approver for approval. So I think it's important for you to know who your finance approver is. They have, okay.
And say there's 10 of them, 2 of them are still sitting there saying they haven't approved, even though I got the notice.
Okay,
Okay,
that's
so
what
that
we
might
want to
be a-
get the specifics of that so we can follow up on that.
Send it to me. Seppi?
Seppi, SEPI dot SEPASI at Rutgers.edu. And she'll both follow up and we'll
That
post
sounds
the
like
answer.
it happened on the expense side as well. It might just be a glitch with the system, and it's not something that you have done or the finance approver's done. It might just be, so we would need to look.
So that's
into
why
it.
if we can get the specifics, we can research it. Good.
Yeah, so we can
That
have
helps.
the technical team look into it and find out what the issue is.
Sorry, Seppi, I think you might be getting the mic back. The GL to project adjustment, is that role up and running? Because I think we were told it was supposed to be December 9th, and we didn't hear anything back after that.
Wait. We need a second mic.
So the project, the cost piece, the project cost adjuster role, that is available, and if you went to that training, it's available and you can use it. So we've asked the project team to actually send a formal communication to say that. The project revenue adjuster role is supposed to be made available this week. So that one is not available and has not been communicated.
Okay, we're going to save, oh, okay, sorry. My peripheral vision isn't what it used to be.
I just have two comments.
Sure.
Eventually, are we going to get a comprehensive like manual of how to do certain things in the various systems? Because I feel as though those classes we attended and those PowerPoint presentations and copies that we got is not really a manual. I mean, anytime you buy a product, you can go online and look at how to use it. Like if I'm buying an iPhone, I can go online and look at the manual. I feel as though we don't have that, and all of these emails we receive are very confusing. That's my first question. My second
Well,
thing.
may I answer?
Okay.
We are going to go back, once we're stable, and take a look at all the reference materials and look through them with teams and users to make sure that they reflect the actual way to do things. If that means that they turn into more of a manual type of thing, that's fine, and perhaps a searchable database or something like that. But so once we are at a stable operating point, then yes, I would be asking the team to go back, look at those things, refresh them, bring in some users, make sure that they reflect current usage, and then update them and publish them.
Thank you. And my second comment, I know you haven't started to talk about this yet, but as far as reporting and reconciling grants, I come from the Rutgers side, and I was using Rex before. I feel as though we have gone years backwards. Now I'm doing reconciling on Excel spreadsheet. I'm downloading a report called the R031, which gives the budget and expenses. It downloads into an Excel spreadsheet. There's no formulas in there, so I have to put formulas in there. I have to check the expenses against the cost module, which is the managed expenditure items. Some expenditure has F&A added, some expenditures does not. So I have to sit there and compare that managed expenditure item report. Oh, well, really, I guess it's not a report. I guess it's just a printout of all the expenses. I have to compare that to that R031 report and make it something compatible to send out to my PIs. Then I have to add in, make sure all of my commitments that I know of, my department commitments that we've initiated as far as purchase orders, I have to make sure all of them are there. Then I have to compare to see what expense has come in. It is very time consuming to do reconciliation compared to the past.
We're going to be adding reporting, and I think what we're going to have some reporting workshops and taking suggestions from there, but we'll be adding some reporting that I hope will address your concerns.
Are you open to taking templates we can send you or send somebody?
Sure. Sure. Mm-hmm.
There was an
You
issue.
can send them to the cornerstone at rutgers.edu if you have suggestions.
There's an issue I'm not sure if anybody is working on. Like last week, I was looking at my suspense account, and when I went into that managed expenditure items, and I could see the individual pay periods, and I compared it to the payroll detail report, there were like these penny entries into my suspense for some of the pay periods, and some of the pay periods just didn't match. Like one, it was like $52 more, and I have no idea who that is in the managed expenditure items because it's not in the payroll detail. I spoke with Jeremy in payroll, and he he had never had seen the project man expense part before, and so I took him through that. But he was like, there's nothing I can do. I wrote the help desk and didn't get a response.
Would you send us that example? And
Sure.
I'll
Who
have
should
it
I send it
researched.
to?
The cornerstone at rutgers.edu.
Oh, I already sent it there before. It just
That
didn't pull
address? Cornerstone at rutgers.edu?
I'll double check.
Okay. Because then, well, send it to me then, and I'll make sure it gets to the right place.
For the October 21st pay period, we found that the FICA Medicare, the 7.65% only, has gone to the 900 UDO, so probably your UDO,
Mhm.
for all of our employees.
Yes.
So is there, I wasn't sure if I was bringing this to your attention, or
No,
is,
we know. We're
Okay.
fixing that.
Okay.
I wasn't intending to pay all that.
Is there some place where some of this is more proactively shared with us? Because it seems that an awful lot of information has come out due to very detailed questioning here today, but a lot of our concerns and a lot of our morale would be a whole lot better if more proactive information came out to the team in the form of, we're aware of this and we'll be getting back to you, or this is our time frame.
Yeah, I mean, to the point that we've been trying to communicate those things. Part of the reason for having these meetings, among others, is to find the stuff that we don't know about. You know, like the pennies there. You know, that's a new one to me. So wanting to hear that means that we get a chance to research it and then post an answer about it. And some of, you know, I'll admit, some of the early days here, the massive communications, we've both put out a lot of communications, and there's been a numbing of it out in the community. So trying to keep up with those things, you know, haven't done the best job of it. Done a good job, but not the best job, I think. But I do want to follow, coming out of these sessions, like to follow up and make sure that questions that are come out of sessions like this, we post answers to the website.
I want to go back to the grant reporting and reconciliation with the PI thing goes. I'll speak from the perspective of the PI. So before the go live thing, I mean, the easiest thing was actually I had access to, as a PI, to Rex also. And I could just simply go there and figure out, before I do my next set of student appointments or other things, what's the balance left. Now I have to basically go to my dean's accounting department, and they are already overwhelmed. My dean's office has only 2 people, and it takes them sometimes weeks and weeks to come back to me. I have to keep bugging, and I wonder if there is any plan to actually either keep Rex going or something else where I don't have to every time go back to the accounting department. I should just know what is left unless
Yes, you
know.
should, and that is our plan. I'm not going to say, we're not going to use Rex, we're going to use the system and some variation of it, but.
Any idea on the timeline?
Well,
for
right
that?
now, you couldn't do it because we aren't caught up anyway. So there's a piece of it that putting resources on making sure that all the expenses are in the system is the first stage. And everyone to have the opportunity to change their payrolls. Then we'll apply resources to those reports, to that reporting. That's not the way I intended it to be, but that's the way that we've had to deal with the resources at this point. But I don't expect you to do that kind of a process going forward. Right here.
Thank you. Going back to the costing module, besides the expenditures, there's another screen that shows commitments, which I found to be really useful, except for one problem. A lot of times there are commitments that show up that are actually shown as already paid under expenditures. So they're in both places. So when I'm doing my account reconciliations, I'm looking at both of those, and then I'm having to figure out, okay, which ones show up as commitments and show up as already having been paid. and trying to then cancel those out.
So it's a commitment that hasn't been relieved?
Sorry?
A
Yeah, a commitment
that
that
has
hasn't
not
been
been
removed.
relieved.
Right, right.
Right.
So that's one thing. And then the other thing is, it's a small thing, but it's a big thing. There's a column for PO, but there's no PO numbers. It would really be helpful to be able to actually see the PO number that matches to the expense. They show up in commitments, but they don't show up in expenditures. Weird.
Huh. Let's take that one back. You're right, that ought to be there. Now, it would make sense that it was there, so I want to know about that one. So just let me just get through a few slides here, and then we'll just keep it open for questions. Terry mentioned before about grant end dates that were not converted appropriately. Those are being painstakingly corrected, and it is painstaking, and targeted for completion by the 20th. The other thing that is in testing and going to be ready to roll out is the FNA assignments, again by January 20th. The backlog of awards set up. So this is an area where we're taking several steps, internal steps and external steps here with, this is one where we are putting in some pressure onto Oracle to speed up the processing. There's a patch that's going to be coming in soon that's going to help, but the whole process needs to be improved there for the actual award setup. So that is definitely an issue. It's also an issue with Boise State, the other institution that's up and running, so we're going to be pushing on that. We do have a commitment that's supposed to improve the setup by about 50% that's coming in early February, I think, a patch, something like that. But then it needs to be better than that. These are things that are underway. So clearly payroll transactions not posting because of the end date. That's one of the keys. Accrual of hours. Subcontract POs not converted, again, due to date. Getting some data dictionary information about the screens. The reports, the salary reallocations, the interface there that we talked about, the form, and these are all things that are known and underway for resolution as quickly as possible. What we're trying to do is get everything as clean as possible this month, so that when we close this month, we're pretty much at a baseline for operating. So just a couple of other things about financial management in general. Units submitted changes for corrections, converted balances. Those are working through with the chancellor units and making sure that they're not duplicating efforts, and then will be posted and submitted. Payroll distribution report, that is out there. We think it's all the way available. There may be a hang up of some kind of access to that one, right? Yeah. The payroll distribution report. Yeah, it's the Discover report, yes. Yeah. We're hearing that, I was hearing there might be an access issue, but it may be an isolated issue. It may just be an individual. These are some of the sample reports from Crosswalk, what it used to be, what it is now, and what tool it is. And I just advise you go down to this thing. We're trying to improve reports as we go along, so check that site periodically. Again, all these slides are available online. Expense management, I think we have the vast majority of the prover fixes in place notwithstanding the things we were talking about before, we are at about a 90%, 87, 88% processing success. With these, there's just a few residual hang-ups in terms of actually processing them, notwithstanding usability issues and some of the things we talked about here that we want to research. Remember these two ways to delegate, reassign or actually delegate, and the differences between them in terms of what the original approver can do. HR payroll, this applies to the people who came in from RBHS, from Banner. There have been targeted communications about that transition. There was some clarification of the organizational units that was necessary, that when the assignments were set up through RBHS units, then it had to be clarified. Payroll distribution report is the same one that's available. The focus right now is making sure that the W-2s that are ready to go out are correct as possible. Questions on the payroll conversion? Anybody here touches that? A few of you. Yeah. We've now gone 14 payrolls, but who's counting? 14 payrolls since the conversion, and I think we're largely through that. Yes, ma'am. Where's the mic? Here, talk into here. I'll repeat your question. Talk into this.
Sorry. The payroll distribution report that's now on Discover, it seems to be working fine.
Mm-hmm.
Back to October 21st pay date, I think. Is that going to be moved into the new system and not be on Discover anymore, or are we going to continue going into Discover to see that?
I just don't know the answer to that. You? Two mics.
It was leveraging the existing report and
Oh.
broadening it to.
I remember. Yeah,
Okay.
okay.
Do you want to take it?
Not until we get the new payroll system. And the reason is because the old payroll system doesn't understand the U, D, and O. It just records it. But since we had to we changed the chart of accounts for charging purposes, but it is not set up from a security standpoint focused on those things. You know, it's still using HR groups and such. When we move to the integrated payroll system, then it'll speak the same language. But remember, we're just using the same old PeopleSoft that we had before. And while it knew how to talk the old language, it doesn't know the new language, other than from a charging perspective. So that's why it had to be outside. Oh, I'm not going to tell you that right now. So, no, seriously.
5 years, 10 years?
No. It's so a project has been approved for that. The initial step is business process review and organizational review of the HR payroll functions across the university. So that's actually commencing this month, that review. That will then lead into the business requirements for the system itself. We already have procured the system. The first, how much change we need to make in the first will suggest how long it takes to do the second. But I suspect it will be within this year or the next fiscal year. So,
It's just a new version of PeopleSoft.
well, no, it's a completely new version of HR payroll. It's from the same, it's PeopleSoft on steroids.
So when I joined DGCA, I went there and I saw that we used to create invoices and we had to do manually data entry, and we were provided GBRs, general ledger balances at the time to do the data entry. Steve is from DGCA and he knows what I'm talking about. So data was there in the system, but it was not talking to any of the DGCA invoicing systems. So that is why we had to manually do everything. Now that we are going in the era of all technology, are we going to create some options where we can query the data so that we can create our customized reports? I'm saying this because when I went to ERC, I joined the Engineering Research Center. We had very tough grant financial requirements, and DGCA was not able to help me at all, and even the systems were not able to help me. They were able to help me to the extent to get the data, but then I had to prepare all the reports manually. Whereas I knew the data is there in the database. If I am allowed to do the query, I should be able to pull out the data the way I want a sponsor wants me to report to. But I was not able to do that in the old system. You are making customized reports where we have to query. Do I have to go in 5 different portals to do the query, or can I, there is one database, can I just...
Yeah, we're going to be moving towards allowing access for people to, within reason, roll their own reports, if you will. That's something that intended to have the system in the longer term, and in fact we're doing some work to get outside of Discover and get into more modern query tools, analytic tools. So yes, we're heading in that direction.
So I have experience with the IT projects. Before I joined Rutgers, I was an IT consultant. I have managed these ERP projects, and now I have worked in DGCA, and I've worked on a complex multi-institutional grant also. So I can help you with the reports if you want me to send you templates how the reports should be, which will ease up a lot of work which we do manually. Reconciliation, putting in the commitments, if the system talks to the system, are just creating the queries which will help them to get the reports what they should be looking for, what the PIs should be looking for, or sponsor needs from us.
Please send them. The more input we get, the better. Back there, and then back there. And especially since we're going to soon get beyond the basics and try to get into that capability. Hi.
Actually, a different question, but just to follow on to your question, is the data that you're pulling HR related, finance related, or payroll related?
I used to pull out all kinds of data.
Okay. The reason why I was asking is that I used to be in a company that ran PeopleSoft, and I had access to a tool called PeopleSoft Query, which lets you pull any data that you need to, and it already has all the security restrictions that you need, so you can just see the departments that you're authorized to see and no one else. The reason why I mention that is my team is in a situation where they can't get reports that they need. It's missing fields, and the only way for people to pull together the reports they need is to run a report 50 different times, combine it all in Excel, then go into each employee's record, pull additional data, and it takes the person a week to do a report, whereas if I still had access to PeopleSoft Query like I did previously, I could write that report in 5 or 10 minutes and save a significant amount of time. Right now I have people going back and even enhancing shadow systems, the very systems that Mike Arrow wanted to get rid of because we can't get into run our own reports. I actually did place a request for PeopleSoft Query, by the way. I'm not sure if that's something that they will eventually grant, that we could start writing our own reports, but yeah.
I'll follow up because
I'd really love to have access to that. I mean, I used to.
When did you have that? Here?
No, a previous company I worked for.
Company. Okay.
And
let me find out.
I've been PeopleSoft trained. I've run like thousands of queries through that. And another question I had, you mentioned that there's going to be a business process review of the HR and payroll. Who can I contact to make sure that I can voice the concerns of my team and make sure that whatever systems we're considering can actually replace the shadow systems that we have in place? Because right now we're heavily relying on shadow systems, and I know you want to get rid of those, so I want to be part of the process to make sure we can get rid of those.
Okay. Richard Axe. I go there? richard.axe@rutgers.edu. No. That's the person you contact. Okay. Yes. So Richard has responsibility for the controller's office, including payroll. And so that's good. Back there?
Hi, you might have already answered this, but I just want to verify. I know you're working on reports which were similar to the SD report, the all funds budget reports, and the SS reports that were in the old system. Is there a timeline on when they could be available? Because they're, pretty good reports.
Okay, hold on, let me, where is that thing on reports? Oh. No, not yet. And again, trying to keep the team's focus on the things that, the emergent things that we have to get through, and then take a step back and start working on the enhancements, or even just the extensions like that. One of the things I wanted to point out was that the controller's office is going to be holding open labs for reporting this month. Well, they're going to be doing it continuously, so we'll be posting the dates of that to provide additional hands-on support and answer questions about reporting and other topics. It'll be dealing with also journal entries, non-sponsored projects, and transactions between GL and projects. So reporting, JEs, non-sponsored projects, and transactions between general ledger and the projects module. We're going to be sending out a communication on the dates. We're going to be sending out a communication on the dates. I'll change that from a question to a statement. So that's another place where you're leaving your suggestions about what are we missing is an important thing. Because we do have a limited number of reports, the basics that we get by with, but it's not sufficient yet. Okay.
So the team is working on the SD report. It's a complicated report because of the new chart, but there is an alternative query report that is available, and we will make sure you have access to that and the instructions to run that. I think it's called account analysis or some version of that. So we'll make sure that information gets out. We'll communicate that. So essentially what I'm saying is there is an alternate report to the SD, and the team is working on the exact SD replicating that report.
Excuse me. Forgive me for regressing. My question is actually regarding check requests. I wanted to ask it before, but we kind of moved around too fast.
Oh, sure.
When we put
check request people.
When we put a check request through, and we have, for instance, for a visitor, guest speaker, we have several different categories that we're going to assign: airfare, hotel, meals, travel other. And you may have 5 or 6 line items on one requisition. That one requisition generates 5 or 6 purchase orders. Does that mean we get 5 or 6 checks going to the recipient, to the traveler? Because you get more than one purchase order against that requisition.
No, just so you understand, if you're using a request for check, the system generates a behind-the-scenes purchase order for each line item. That is correct. But one check will be cut for the summary of the entire requisition, for the entire request. There won't be multiple checks that go out. It's just for accounting purposes, and behind the scenes there are different purchase orders that do get generated.
So the purchase order is generated because of the account code that you're using?
Yeah, and the system, now it's a full P2P system, so where we used to do requests for check directly to AP and it wasn't part of a full P2P suite, now it's part of our entire purchasing procurement, procure-to-pay system. The system generates a PO number. It's not a traditional purchase order. It doesn't go out to a supplier like a regular PO does, but a PO number is generated as a reference number, so we can go up and look at that transaction in the system.
So how would we, the end user, know which one actually is his full check number? I mean, if I wanted to say I processed $700 to someone, and I've got these 5 different purchase orders.
When it gets approved, there'll be an invoice that actually gets processed immediately when AP approves that check request, and there'll be a check number associated with that.
With that one invoice number?
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question about the indirect costs that it's added into the natural account.
Yes.
Is that correct? Because don't we need to keep the indirect costs as separate? Because some of my grants, I noticed some of the costs, the indirect costs went right into the natural account and not into the indirect cost account separate.
Didn't go into the natural account for indirect?
Yeah, it adds, like, if you had supplies or whatever, it adds, indirect cost
Haven't
is
heard that
added
one.
in.
Okay.
It's being.
So that relates back to the F&A corrections by the 20th.
So that's going to be corrected.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, we will stay around. It's 4:30. We'll stay around as long as you have questions.
Hi,
Until I have to leave to get home.
Okay. You just had a slide up about the finance approver lookup. How do we get the finance approver changed? Not the project manager. I know that goes through GCA, but how do
Right.
we get the finance approver changed?
Right. That was up there.
Okay.
You're going to talk? Thank you.
Steve
I know it was up there.
I had a couple questions. To go back, there's the PGM report, I think it's 33 or 31, that shows the detail, and then the other one shows the summary. The detail one, when you export it to Excel, all the columns are real narrow, and you have to take the time to reset all the columns correctly before you can use it. Is there a way we can fix that so that when it comes out into Excel, all the columns are nice and readable, and I don't have to take 5 minutes to reset all the columns? Yeah? Yeah, but it still doesn't. Like I can do auto fit height and auto fit width, but it still doesn't. Then I still have to tweak it. It doesn't come out
We'll
necessarily
take a look and
nice.
see if there's some way we can push it out differently.
Okay.
CSV.
All right, I'll try that. Okay. The other question was last month I asked about the old purchasing system for Rutgers and how we don't have access to any of the old quotes and any of the old sole sources and right. And you guys said that you were going to restore access so we could look that stuff up, and to date we still don't have access.
So we're unable to give that access, but what we thought we could do is if you need to, the issue was you need to be able to reload your PSBA, for example, right? Or
it's not just that. Like, let's say I have a person that doesn't work at Rutgers anymore.
Right.
That did a purchase order. I used to be able to go in and query every purchase order they
Correct.
did, and then I could see how it was done last time.
Correct.
I could see what the quote was last time. I can compare it to my new quote. I could look at the sole source that was done last time, use it as a stepping stool or to do my sole source this time to make sure I'm on the right
Got it.
track and it's going to get it approved.
Got it.
And in the old system, we were told we didn't need to keep it because it's always available online.
Right.
So anytime I wanted to, I could
You could go back to it.
query by the person, query by the vendor, query by anything, and then I would get a list of all the purchase orders. Then I could click on it and I could get to see all the attachments. All right? So I didn't necessarily save any of that stuff for myself.
Correct.
But especially for somebody that leaves, if it's not saved on their computer or if it wasn't saved here,
Right.
that was where we would go get it.
Right.
Now I can't go get it.
Right.
So
So what-
I want to be able to go get it.
So I think the immediate need was if you need to create a new purchase order, right? So if you need to, your purchase order wasn't converted, and now you need to create a new PO, and you have to bring all that backup documentation over, the thought was to work with procurement, and procurement would pull all that information and attach it to that PO.
Yes.
But you have additional needs.
I'm like historical information.
Correct.
To get that, not just not just a conversion issue.
Correct, correct.
I want to do something else, and I want to see what was done last time. So I have to email. Right now, what I do is I've been emailing purchasing
Right.
on a case-by-case situation, and then waiting for somebody to get it and email
Right.
it.
So
I
we'll
don't-
take
I
it
don't
back
wanna
to.
have to bother them if I don't have to. It used to take me 2 seconds to get the information.
Sure.
Now it takes me 2 or 3 weeks to get the information.
Sure. We'll go back to IT, because when we tested it, you couldn't, the average user couldn't pull those backup documentation. Dave, I don't know if you want to
I
add
mean,
to it.
that had to do, that was a decision, that was not specifically a purchasing decision, it was when the legacy systems were sunset. It was a matter of what type of access people would have going forward to not just purchasing information, but other financial information as these things had to be sunset, and which departments would have the ability to go in. So I know from a procurement standpoint, particularly with the situation that Sethi was talking about, was the immediate question of the day, which is to say, if departments wanted to create what we call successor POs, we didn't want to burden you to have to provide all that backup documentation. We would get what we needed. Now, you're bringing up.
I wouldn't have had it to give it to you anyway.
Well, exactly, but we knew that if you referenced the old PO, we would be able to go get it and be able to set it up in the new system. You're talking about another valid point, a business need to go and compare and look and see how you were going to be able to do new business, perhaps just to compare an old single sole source or quotes going forward. That's something really that we need to think about going
So
forward.
we'll go back and take a new look at that.
It was basically, like, when you logged in, it was the top line here that you clicked on.
So we'll go back and we'll
To do all
see
that,
if,
to be able to do it, and now it's not there.
all right, we'll look into that, see if we can solve that.
Okay. I got one more question too. Tasks on grants. Originally, before the rollout, we were saying that we were gonna be able to have tasks on grants, and then when we went live, they decided you couldn't have tasks on grants. Is there any idea in the future to have tasks on grants?
It's my understanding we were never having tasks on grants, that tasks were going to be on non-sponsored but not on sponsored projects.
Because I used to use Activity 1 and Activity 2 as a way to further track my project. And now that I don't have Activity 1 and 2, when I went to the meetings, I was told I would be able to do that through tasks. Now when we came live, I was told, you're not having tasks on grant. So what mechanism will I have, if any, and when I can further delineate my project in my project account? Because it's a $4 million project a year. It comes in as one account, and it's one PI, but under that PI, we have code our sites, we have gliders, we have money going to the websites, we have money going towards management. And I used to track those sub-budgets using Activity 1 and Activity 2, those expenses for each of those groups within that grant, within that project. And when I went to a meeting in Knightsbridge before we went live, we were told, oh, you'll do that with tasks when you go live. And now I'm told I can't do that with tasks.
So I will say that when we implemented it, there was never an intention to have tasks on projects in sponsored projects. So I don't know who said that, but that was never the way that it was intended. So I don't know who told you that, and I apologize. But as to tracking, We did speak with another university that tried to use tasks on projects, and it was a reporting disaster, and they strongly recommended against it. That was a recommendation we took. We understand that people have reporting needs. We will look at it, but for right now, there's not a plan to do that. We've been given a couple examples to look at where people want that sort of reporting. But for right now, that will be down the road. But it was never an intention to do it that way.
Okay, we're going to take one more question, then call it an afternoon. Oh, maybe two. Who was it? Over here, and then you.
Is there a timeline when they will be adding RU initiatives? Like, for example, in my department, we have years of historical data of expenses by course, and my chair would really like me to track that, but it's extremely manual right now to do something like that, because there's no field. We used to track it by Department 1 and Department 2.
Yeah, we're looking at that for the next fiscal year, so July 1. And we're right in the middle of this one. I'm not making the change at this point. Probably is counterproductive, but we're looking at the chart usage and probably, I mean, we have 2 fields available for things such as that. And I'm at a group looking at, which one will we use and how will we use it. And way over there. Yep.
She pretty much asked the same question I was going to ask, but to
that
pick,
could address your issue too.
yes, that's what I was going to say. The RU initiative field was supposed to address the concern of tracking outside of the task, and I wanted to know if that was available. But
Yeah, no, so there was a conscious reason not to start with that, simply because there was enough change already going on with the chart. And just getting everybody used to all, the other 8 fields was enough. But fully intend to put that into play. The activity field and the RU initiative field are the 2 that have been reserved for future use. Activity would be a more structured field, that would have definition beyond a unit. The RU initiative would be, a set of numbers that are meaningful for you, but they're different for you. You could use the same numbers, but they're simply for your local reporting. And I do expect that we would probably go live with that in July with the next fiscal year. But, I mean, that would be my goal.
thank you. Another question regarding expense management. Currently, if we do not have a role in the approval process, we're not able to see what has been submitted against a certain project. So for instance, I'm not a finance approver and I'm not a project approver. Is there a way for me to view what was submitted if it was charging a particular project?
So you can't, so if you go into that expense in projects, you can't then see what it goes back to?
You
can't drill back to it?
If it has been posted in the managed expenditure item, yes, I can see it, but sometimes I would want to see the details of what was submitted, and I can't see the actual expense management report.
No, okay. Yeah. Okay, so the 2 suggestions here, that there's someone could delegate that to you to be able to see on certain one, and the other one is a view, and if it's a project.
Yeah, so in projects you have a project manager role, and then there's another role where you can view, I forget what it's called. Sorry, so in the projects module, there is a view role, like if you need to give other people access to that project, they can't transact in it, but they can see. So I can get you that name of that role, but that's another way if you want to see what's hitting your project. So you have that option, or the second option is if you actually want to see the details of the transaction as part of the finance approver. So if let's say it's my expense report and Ernie's the approver, but you need to see it, Ernie could delegate it to you as well. So you see it, but ultimately one person approves it. So that's another way if you want visibility into that particular. So, but there's
Why don't you
no
connect names so you can.
Yeah, if I can get your name, I can.
Okay, well, thank you for your patience. This is not easy. No one expects it to be easy. And I certainly don't minimize the difficulty of it. But we're going to keep plowing through these things.